Welcome to the Board Wrap-Up Show. I'm your host, Sean Anderson for Ponca City Public Schools. This is the program that recaps the month's Board of Education meeting for Ponca City Public Schools, and we're going to be talking about the February meeting with Curtis Layton, the Director of Human Resources for Ponca City Public Schools. He's stepping in for Superintendent Shelley Arrett this month. Mr. Layton, thank you for being here.
Oh, glad to be here.
Well, the Board of Education meeting, we have certain things we're going to talk about. We're going to kind of go through the entire meeting. And of course, every Board of Education meeting, and February no different, starts off with recognizing some wonderful people.
Yep, we recognize our employees of the month, and we have our certified employee of the month, our sport employee of the month, and our friend of education. This month, our certified employee was Miss Diane DeGan. She is a 39-year veteran,
Wow.
teaches at West Middle School, and she is a master teacher. I was privileged enough to be her principal when I worked over there, and she is one of the best.
Wow.
So it was neat to see that. Also, our support employee was Miss Tina Robbins, who works at West, so I had an opportunity to work with her as well. Very good at what she does, and she works with our special ed students.
Wonderful.
And our friends of education were Dana and Chelsea Fisher from Washington Pre-K.
Very good. Fantastic. It's always a wonderful way to start the Board of Education meeting. Then we get into student presentations, which that's always fun too. Tell us about the student presentation at the February meeting.
It's always my favorite part.
Yeah.
I get to see what the students are doing, and we got to see the mock trial team. I think it's relatively new for Ponca City Schools, but Mr. Zach Murray, a science teacher at Pohai, is their sponsor. And what they do is they're assigned a case, and then they take on certain roles, and then they try the case, and they compete against other schools. And they have moved to the next round. I'm not sure if what that's called, district regionals or whatever, but they competed against a school, and they are moving into the next round.
Wow.
And we also got to see a gentleman give his opening statement, and I'm pretty certain we have a future lawyer on our hands.
Wow.
So he did an
No
excellent
doubt.
job.
Oh, that's
We
fantastic.
also got to see the challenge students from Trout Elementary, and they had built bridges out of toothpicks and researched different structures of bridges and different styles of bridges.
Oh, wow.
And so some of them were explaining what their favorite bridge structure was, and some of them brought their structure they built out of toothpicks. And they had limitations. They had a certain amount of glue they could use, certain amount of toothpicks they could use, and so they did a really good job not only telling about their bridges, but building their bridges. So.
Very nice. Well, there were two contracts on the agenda over $10,000. And what were those?
One of them was to re-gravel the road at the farm. We're doing some improvements at the farm, and
When you say the farm, just for people that are not
yes.
familiar, what is the farm?
for our VOAG program,
Okay.
their place where their animals are kept and that kind of stuff. And there's a gravel road out there that's needed some attention for a while. So that was approved by the board. Our ag teacher, Mr. Frazier, has been here for a very long time and runs a very, very good program. It's beneficial certainly to the kids and the district. And so he was up in the rotation as far as some improvements, and so there's a lot of improvements you're going to see over the next couple months out at the farm.
Oh, good.
And this one was the first, so they're putting that road in hopefully pretty soon.
All right.
The second was from Fruhoff band uniforms, and we had the privilege of seeing a band student. It was actually the same student who gave the mock trial demonstration. Model the new band uniforms. They're very slick. Mr. Christie did a very good job of explaining every little piece of them, but it's going to be exciting. I don't want to have spoiler or anything. So
We're talking full dress.
full dress band uniforms
dress
with
band
the
uniform.
plume and the helmet,
Oh,
and they
wow.
are slick. So with the
nice.
new logo on the front, and so excited about the first time those are rolled out in August or September in our first football game.
Oh, that's going to be fantastic. Site data reports. It's something that is on the agenda every month for the Board of Education meeting. What are site data reports, and what reports are we talking about?
Our principals report to the Board of Education on their current reality and some of the improvements they're making academically to try to to improve academics district-wide. And so it's a way for the board to hear from the principals on exactly what they're working on in their building and some of the initiatives they're doing to try to improve academic achievement district-wide. This month we had East Middle School and Principal Denton Long and Thad Dilbeck from Powhai.
Very good. The superintendent's report, what did this include?
I think we talked, the lion's share of it was the legislative agenda and what's coming up that we're going to see in this legislative session. First of all, she talked a little bit about Governor Stitt's State of the State address, and it was very promising for educators, and it was very refreshing to hear a governor's State of the State and talk about investing in education and wanting to push that platform forward and be partners with the State Department of Education, and refreshing to see as an educator. But also she talked about the legislative highlights for the session and what some of the things the legislature is going to be looking at. I think that more funding for education overall and bringing up the per pupil expenditure and making our state competitive with other states. We had a big jump last year with the teacher raise, but we know that's a first step. And so looking at bringing not only our teachers up to the same salary, but also spending the same amount that other states spend on their students. That'll be a big push as well. Some other things that they'll be looking at is that since the teacher raise was put into the funding, the moratorium on the House Bill 1017, House Bill, what are they called? The limits in House Bill 1017 that have to do with class size and have to do with hiring librarians and things like that. Those have all been on kind of put on pause until there was money for that. Well, since the teacher raise was put back into education, it took those limits off. So right now the issue isn't do we have the money, the issue is do we have the people. It's going to be hard to bring 6 librarians in. It's going to be hard to bring enough teachers in to reduce the class size to those limits. And so one of the proposals is to keep that moratorium in place until our per pupil expenditures get equal to the regional average. And so they're looking at ways where schools aren't fined for having those class size limits.
Yeah. When you look at Ponca City Public Schools, I mean, just a general idea of a timeline. I mean, how long will it take Ponca City Public Schools to get in line with those averages? We're not too far off in some of our sites. One of the issues that we have to really look at is how to disperse students evenly across the system. If we just took the number of students divided by the number of teachers, our ratio is not bad. But some schools have more kids than other schools, and so that's always going to be a problem for us. So we have a timeline and a goal that Ms. Arrett has put in place that within 4 or 5 years we have met those limits, and so we have a plan to go forward with those. But the biggest hurdle we're going to face is hiring teachers. If Ms. Arrett said, "Okay, Mr. Layton, go out and hire me 10 teachers right now," I don't have 10 teachers to hire because of the shortage, and that's the biggest hurdle we're coming into. It's not can we afford to put these people in place. It's can we find librarians? Can we find counselors? Can we find math teachers, science teachers, elementary teachers? And so that's going to be the biggest issue for the next 4 or 5 years. Other issues they're looking at is they're looking at bills to give virtual charter schools or make virtual charter schools be more transparent in how they spend their money. That's been a big push in the last couple of years. There's a look at the 4-day school week. There may be some legislation that addresses the 4-day school week, and the superintendent, I think on Flashpoint last weekend, the state superintendent made a point that she's not really in favor of those and feels like that those are not best for students. And so there might be some legislation that addresses that as well. So The consent agenda and financial reports is routine business.
It was.
Yeah.
There wasn't anything that was, I would say, it was outstanding in that area. Very routine. Just some of our contracts under $10,000 and things like that.
There was a resolution for sale of bonds.
Yes.
What exactly is this all about?
March 5th, there will be a special board meeting at noon in the administration center, and what they're doing is selling $1.9 million in building bonds from the bond issue.
Very good. Action on the 2019-20 school year calendar. What were some of the changes? I know we had some. I believe we had some last month. What were some of those now?
Our Association of Classroom Teachers and Administration collaboratively brought together 4 calendar options to our calendar committee. And our calendar committee consists of administrators, teachers, support, parents, students, and it's about a 20-30 person committee. And we kind of go over those calendars and look at some options. Probably the biggest change people are going to see is that we move fall break. Instead of a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Other than that, there's not, we still have 167 instructional days, and our contract days remain the same for teachers. And other than that, that's really the major change people are going to see.
The big day on the calendar coming up, Read Across America Day, and this was brought up at the meeting. What was discussed?
Well, on March 2nd, we're going to have the Read Across America Day, which is the first school day closest to Dr. Seuss' birthday.
Okay.
And so just a day to emphasize reading and the importance of that.
Yeah, very good. And then the meeting really came to a close as it moved into executive session. And what can you tell us about that?
Well, executive session is where we discuss personnel issues and issues that any kind of pending litigation or anything like that, or anything that doesn't need to be held in a public meeting. It was, not much I can tell you about executive session, but and this wasn't really discussed in executive session, but one thing we are looking at next year is after school childcare.
Yeah.
When the YMCA, shut down and that service was no longer available, we saw that our parents had a need. We put some kind of emergency in place at pre-K for our employees, but we started to look at investigate what are we going to do district-wide. And so right now we have a survey out for parents. It's online, and they can also get it from their sites if they want to do it with paper, and it's just basically gauging what kind of interest we would have in having site after school daycare.
Very good. You can find that survey at pcps.us. So Ponca City Public Schools would love you to take that survey to help them make that decision as we move forward. That's going to do it for this edition of the Board Wrap-Up Show. My thanks to the Director of Human Services, or Human Resources, I should say, for the school district, Curtis Layton. Curtis Layton, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And for Shelley Arrett on this edition of the Board Wrap-Up Show. That'll do it. Until next time, thank you for watching.